You didn't help me verbally or anything.
Alright, so today we are examining X-linked traits, also known as sex-linked traits. Why males have certain traits females do not in situations. But before we move on to that, let's answer our start question. Who determines the sex of the offspring, the mother or the father? Or we got some folks saying the father. And is that just something you heard, or did you know why? Or?
No.
Isn't it both?
You did. We're gonna, for those who didn't get a chance, opportunity to learn it before, we are going to figure this out today. But it is the male. The male determines whether or not you'll be a boy or a girl.
Just take the L.
Now,
Wow.
now, are we then saying that as a father, you're only ever gonna make girls, or you're only ever gonna make boys? No, right?
It could happen.
It's still,
My uncle.
it's a lottery. Every child is, a coin toss, right? It could be a boy, it could be a girl. But it's his sperm that will determine whether it's a boy or a girl. So
Is it possible for the female sperms and the male sperm, one to be stronger than the other? Or
what do you mean by strong?
I don't know. I don't want to use dominant because I don't know if it'll fit.
So each individual sperm, like any individual cell,
Because
right, it might have a longer, better flagella, right? It might swim better, or the little motor that runs the flagella could be stronger. So yeah, there could be, in that batch, right? It's the sperm that made it to the egg, right?
Depending on the strength.
Was the strongest. So you were stronger than the male style sperm, right?
When are you collecting binders?
At the end of the quarter, in week 9. Alright, so it is in our genes to try and understand the universe. So this is a bit of a evolutionary question in that. Are all animals, are all organisms curious? Do they want to examine their environments?
Cats and monkeys.
Why is that? Why are we naturally
So they can
curious?
adapt.
Perhaps
to adapt.
Perhaps there's an adaptive quality to it, so we adapted better. What is it we're trying to figure out when we encounter anything in our world?
What it is, how it works.
Alright, maybe what it is, and why is that? What do all babies do with everything they touch?
Put it in their mouth.
They put it in the mouth.
Why?
So they can taste how it tastes.
And does it even taste like?
Shut up, you don't have to repeat it.
So they're trying to figure out, is this something that is beneficial? Will this nourish me? Thank you for saying that. Right? Or they're trying to figure out, is it something harmful, right? So all organisms, as an adaptation, right, are naturally curious. This allows us to find things that might benefit us. Also to learn about what things to avoid. Alright, so the usual homework routine tonight, so page 441, notes 1 through 3. And those questions will be super double extra easy after our lesson today. And I can see that you have a nice tool in front of you if you've fallen behind, in which they require the things you might be missing. So we are on the second week of chapter 11, which means what's happening this Friday?
A test.
We'll have ourselves a nice little assessment on chapter 11 this Friday. Alright folks, let's move on.
Wait.
You'll know your 60 seconds. And what a weekend. How many folks had what we'll call a productive, organized, successful weekend? Like you studied for your black boy test, and you did your history outline.
Actually, I can say that.
Very nice. Alright, some history action went on. Alright, very nice.
I did my kind
Did only one student, for those who didn't hand this in yet,
I don't
only
know
one person
if
finished?
you haven't.
Alright, got some more to collect.
Did I give that to you?
Mr. Luna, would you be willing to retrieve the last couple and bring them
Would
up?
you be willing to check if I
Yeah,
did
the ones that
mine?
were left over there, I quit.
No, I just put mine over there.
6 more minutes.
Where did he say he's at, John? Where did he say he's at? Right there?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, leave it there, John. Thanks. Alright, great. So, yeah, let's move on to the next step. Oh, such excitement for learning.
Oh, yeah.
Alright, so, does anyone have any idea what this is? This random picture?
A bacteria?
Alright, so we just went a molecule.
Chromosome.
They're chromosomes.
Yeah.
So notice here we have one that has a
Yes.
yeah.
Whenever you guys are ready. Right, that's
We
what I
started
was
class at 4:45, so at 10:45. So everybody look at your timekeeping device.
Oh, we got 5 more. I got 5 more.
No, we got 5 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so,
Alright.
so now notice right, these are chromosomes, and what do you notice about this chromosome versus the other one? All right, it's small,
One's
right?
bigger
It's a
and
different
smaller.
shape, right? It's a different orientation. For Miss Katrina's class, you folks remember how many pairs of chromosomes do we have in our species? So we have 46 total, which means how many pairs? 23, right? So our 23rd pair, and this here, whoops, and this we're just talking about, you don't have to do anything with this really. So our 23rd pair of chromosomes, we either have 2 of these X's, which makes us a female, or we have an XY, which makes us a male, right? So if you're a sperm and you contain a Y chromosome, you're going to create what kind of offspring? A male, right? You're going to create a boy. All right, so let's move on to the parts that'll make a little more sense. All right, so, and often because of this XY situation, we have a situation known as sex-linked traits, also known as X-linked traits. All right, so these are genes that are only found on an X chromosome. So what we're saying here is that if you have this, let's say I am a female and I have this, how many copies of each allele do I have?
1.
So I've got 2 chromosomes. So I've got 2 copies, right? So maybe this one is like, maybe this one is, oh, it's smart board, it's not alive. Maybe this one's like big H. It's totally not working. I'll do a big word.
Cállate la boca, saqueto, y que te
All right, so we can say here, if we've got this, right? Maybe on this one you have the dominant allele, you have the big H, on this one you have the small one. But let's say on your male, you have this XY thing. And let's say here you have this. What do you not have there? Chapter 11.
I have a question.
Mm.
Did you get my paper with the really designating thing?
Yep, and I answered everything that was given to me last week and asked them already. I answered it all by Friday.
I was in my grade for it.
All right, so maybe the middle of class while I'm teaching isn't the time for your personal business. All right, so we have an X here, and what's missing from the Y? Yeah, right, so this whole section that might be missing that gene. So what is the only thing this male could be?
A male.
What?
Well, all right, what do we call this condition when you've got 2 different versions of an allele?
2 different versions?
Yeah, right, so if I have dominant and a recessive together,
Heterozygous.
heterozygous, right? So my male, though, can he be heterozygous?
Yeah, no.
Not for this thing, right? Because he's only got the one allele. So that's why, sometimes the X chromosome determines if you have a trait or not, right? So these sex-linked traits then are therefore determined by the male. Because if his sperm has a Y, right, and then he gets the egg from the female, what do we call when we combine a sperm and an egg again? You get the zygote, right? The zygote will have this combination. So the offspring only has one opportunity to express that trait. Either they're going to have the dominant trait or the recessive trait, but they will not be heterozygous. What are the other 2 conditions? What about our female there? What if our female had two capital H's? What do we call that again?
Homozygous.
Homozygous what? Should be
Dominant.
dominant, right? And if she had 2 of the recessives, the little ones?
Homozygous.
Should be
Recessive.
homozygous recessive, great. Right? So males, for certain traits, will be none of those 3 options. Not homozygous recessive, not heterozygous, not homozygous dominant. There's certain things that they're only. And actually, I think it was this class, someone had called out recently a condition that generally occurs in males. Something like that.
Oh!
Colorblind?
Color blindness, right? So that's generally speaking a male trait. Though not only, but specifically, generally speaking. And there'll be different versions of that as well. All right, so what this means is, right, so that if you are a female, you have these 2 X's as your chromosome combination. and it gets about the 23rd chromosome. We're saying for the other 22 pairs, they're all going to be X. It's going to be X's all the way. But it's just on this last batch, on the 23rd, which determines whether you're going to be a boy or a girl. You know, because for most of our features, we are the same, right? What are some things that whether you're a boy or girl, you have the same of?
Nipples?
Hair.
Areola, right? Nipples, hair. And say more about hair, Victoria. What do you mean by hair?
Pubic hairs?
Girl. No, human, like hair.
All right, so she's saying like hair on the top of your head, sure, right?
But some of us have it.
Do males and females have the exact same hair patterns on their bodies?
No. Yeah.
No. Oh yeah, yeah.
Some males have chest hair.
We all have hair everywhere.
Right. Right, but so
It's just gonna go on the bottom of your feet.
why was that though? So what was that whole? We talked about this before. We all start off as what? We all start off as female, right? And then what changes for the males in the womb? Well, so this Y chromosome starts.
Wow. Yeah.
And what does the mother put a lot of into the womb in terms of your development as a male? Testosterone, right? All right, so, and then our males will have our XY chromosome.
Mister, can I go after this?
Yeah. Yeah, just one. And so this will determine what? If you were, you know, again, starting off that early stage of the fetus, we all have these ovaries. If you are a male, where you have the XY combination, what will happen to those ovaries? They'll turn into what? Testicles, right? They'll drop down, turn into testicles. Right. Just close, just looking for the more academic word. Right, so, and, right, so just thinking about this idea, right, that we start off the same, but because of this slight variation, because of one single chromosome, right, it changes whether or not we'll have male or female characteristics.
But in the
Will there be any point at which you stop talking this period?
Yeah.
Remember, I gave the 2 nice warnings, and now we're subject to get ugly, claws come out. All right, so
I don't like that.
I don't like either when you talk while I'm talking. We're in agreement. All right, so see how well things work out when we cooperate. All right, folks that for some reason after 25 weeks showed up without their binders, now would be the time to go get them. It's been the 15-minute queue.
I've had my binder since
All right, so
forever.
Oh really?
now what if you're a female and you have a recessive copy of something, but it's not in your phenotype, like you don't express it, like you have it, but it's not showing. What do we call that? You're a carrier, right? Right, so we have carriers. Right, so a carrier is an individual that they have this gene for a recessive trait, but they're not expressing it. It's not part of their phenotype. It's not part of their visible thing. Since we write it though, what do we call that other version? So we have phenotype, which is what you see, and then we have our genotype, that written version, right? So over here I have a genotype, and the phenotype is what would be you observe. Perhaps folks can remind me. You know what, I'll call her a friend. I don't want to slip this in people's tongue. So when we did our family trees last week, pardon me, students. There seems to be a verbal disturbance in the hallway.
You got food? I got rice cake.
All right, so not Victoria, Mr. Kelly. If this female is a carrier, how do I show that visually? What did they do in our family tree? When we had that activity in class, we did those notes where they showed all the squares and the circles. Yeah, so how do I show if someone's a carrier for something? They have the gene, but they don't have the phenotype. Can you take a look here?
Oh, when I have half?
When it's half filled in, right? So if you're a carrier, you're awesome. Right, so if you're a carrier, you're often shown, right, as having half that circle filled in. Now, maybe folks remind me, the family tree we drew, we colored some of them in green, some of them in orange. What did we notice about the trait? What individual or kind of individual had the trait always? Like, all the males did, right? And that's because of this. So let's try to put that into print, right? So a carrier might not have the phenotype, right? They have this little H. right? So if you're a female, you've got an opportunity, right, to copy over a recessive trait, right? You can still have a dominant trait that might cover it over, right? So females are generally carriers for a lot of certain traits that they never actually express. However, right, so the carrier doesn't have the phenotype, but they might have the genotype, they might have the little h. However, if you are a male, right, so if you're a female and you mate with a male who has that, so let's say, you know, for this individual, for this zygote, mom gave him an H, this small h, right, and then dad gave him this Y. What does this mean for his phenotype? What's the only thing he can be? Yeah, what do we call that characteristic, the lowercase? The recessive, right? He can only be the recessive. And this is why you see that with males, just like in the family tree we did. Sometimes males are expressing traits that females never show. Right, because they only have the one chance, right? They're either going to have the dominant trait or the recessive, but they won't have a mixture of the two. And we wouldn't use that expression homozygous there because there's not two things to match, right? That refers to two things being the same. All right, what's next one? So we're not ready for that yet. Sorry.
No.
Yeah, well, what else ready for that? Right, so in looking back there, let's go ahead and put this on the family tree we drew last week. So flip over to that one where we did the green and the orange. And under our orange males, put a combination, yes. Oh, yeah. Put a combination that looks like that. So put an XY and show that the X has a recessive version of the trait. And it doesn't have to be an H.
No, it can be any letter.
It can be any letter, right? It's like, you know, you can have some artistic freedom here, right? So if you want to make it a Q or a Z, whatever, right? But underneath all of our males on last week's family tree, we had done all of our recessive males in orange, or commercial, right? So we can show that a male has an XY underneath. So for all of your boxes, right, you can put the XY.
Just the
Were you
orange?
out last Monday?
I think I was
So, as always, folks, if you are out, where can you find the notes? Right on the website. Just because you're out of school doesn't mean the learning stops. Right, so you're still responsible for picking those notes up if you're out. That's the whole reason I put the videotaped presentations online and on the website. Right, so you always have the opportunity to learn. All right, so let's have a look at this here. Right, so here we have a male, an unaffected male, and so what do we know about this allele? What do we know about this trait? If we're saying he doesn't have the recessive trait on his X, he therefore has the dominant, right? So we know that this little, all right, we'll do one of those little targeting things. Excellent. All right, great. So we know that the male has the dominant trait. Trait right on that allele. Now the mom, over here, what do we have? No, she has two different ones. So she therefore has a, yeah, right, she has one recessive and one dominant. Now if they cross, we're saying that, you know, that these are the probabilities here. What does this remind you of, this idea of you have a male, a female, and then 4 options? Remind me of a skill we worked on last week, perhaps?
What's it called?
The Punnett squares, right? So this is just another visual way of showing the Punnett square, right? So what we've got here, right, if we take mom's dominant one and put it in her gamete, what's the female gamete again? An egg, right? So her egg went here, right, and his sperm went there. This child only has the 2 dominant ones. But if mom makes an egg with the recessive trait and sends it this way, Dad has the Y chromosome there. Does the Y have one of these little colored bands? No, right? So he has no way of competing with her recessive trait, which is why their son would be the one to wind up with this trait. Awesome. All right, we're gonna come back to this later on, but first, due to the field trips and other craziness, we have a few notes from last week that we missed. So we're just gonna go back and wrap those up. Those of you who are looking at the slideshow, you're gonna go, I think it's what, slide 19? Yeah, you can go to slide 19. Those of you who are using packets from Ms. Tassinari, look for one of the note-taking sessions from last week and you'll see Mendel's 3 laws.
I wanted a.
Like sometimes she makes extras, sometimes she doesn't. This week she only gave me enough to cover certain people.
You didn't even give it to me. He didn't even go home to eat it.
She delivered them to your class last week, I remember. Alright, so one of the things we're talking about is this idea of the law of dominance. Again, what is it? What does the word dominance imply, or dominating, or dominant?
Like overpowering.
Overpowering, strong, right? Right, so one of the things Mendel noticed, can someone remind me, what was Mendel's experiment? What did he do?
Let's see if the flowers would like. Write that down.
Yeah, right, so to see if, right, so he noticed that if he had 2 flowers, he had a red flowering plant and a white flowering plant, and they produced offspring, what was most likely to happen?
Pink flower.
Or they could be pink, or white, or red, but which one would happen the least often, the pink, white, or the red, you think? Which of those colors seems like it would be harder to cover over the other 2? The white, right? Usually the red is dominant. So what he noticed was that if you take 2 parents and you put them together, only one of the traits will appear.
Write that down.
Yeah, you can. So feel free to go to the Miss O'Hara's office or downstairs to see Nurse Remy. So I'll come back in 5 seconds and you'll either be up or you'll be down. Alright, so we're saying that if parents are pure, what do we mean by pure? If they have 2 copies of the same allele, what are options that could happen there? If you have 2 options, if you have 2 alleles and they're the same, if you are pure. Alright, so you could be, right? Let's say we do it with H's, or you could be this. Right? These are pure parents, they're not hybrid, they're not mixed, right? They don't have different versions. Now, what he did here was, he took flowers that had 1 trait, that was a dominant trait, right? So maybe those were his red flowers.
What?
And then he took another flower that was maybe white, right? He had his recessive trait. What are all of these offspring going to look like? What's their phenotype going to be? Are they going to be white like the female flower or red like the male flower?
Red.
They're all going to be red, right? So what he's noticing, if you mix 2 purebreds, right, that are different looking, only usually one of their visible traits appears afterwards. So he was able to figure out by mating plants over and over again that there's one version of an allele that's always stronger than the other. That is the dominant one. All right, Mr. So what would you like to do? Are you going to join the class or go find a place of refuge to rest? Great. Would you like a pen? Nice pen. Good one. Long time. Let me know. All right, so we're all good on that? Very nice. All right, he also observed this idea of the law of segregation. What is to segregate something?
Separate.
Just separate, right? So like have one group different than another. Once again, you can read through this and decide to paraphrase it if you like, but what we're saying is during the formation of gametes, when females are making eggs and males are making sperm, alleles for different traits do not have to occur together. Remind me, last week, we did an experiment where we recorded data on traits in the classroom. What were some of the traits we observed in our class?
Cleft chin.
All right, whether or not you have a cleft in your chin. What else? All right, whether you're right or left-handed. Whether you have detached earlobes. What about this action? Right, whether you're straight-thumbed or hitchhiker-thumbed. Now, what Mendel also noticed is that just because you have one trait doesn't automatically mean you'll have another, right? So if you have attached earlobes and a hitchhiker thumb, and the person sitting next to you has attached earlobes, does that mean they also have hitchhiker's thumb? No, right? Those things are segregated. They are separate, right? Each of you is some unique version of those traits, right? Like some of you might have hitchhiker's thumb and a lunula, and then detached earlobes. But then the person sitting next to you might have attached earlobes, a straight thumb, but have lunula, right? So you're all some different variation on those things, right? And we were able to also in our class notice that some of those traits were, of course, dominant over others. Right? Now, in addition to these things being separate, right? Whether or not you have a widow's peak and your hand clasped with left thumb up, in addition to those being separate, he also observed this idea of the law of independent assortment. What is it when something is independent?
No.
Many of you are starting to practice your independence as adolescents.
You
Right.
do one thing, you do things by yourself.
Doing things on your own, right? Maybe having a job, making your own money, right? So doing things on your own, right? Like, you guys are at the age now where it's less likely that, your parent or guardian walks you to the bus stop in the morning. But they used to at some point, right? They used to make sure you got there okay. So, what we're saying in our law of independent assortment is that alleles or different traits, as gametes are being created, as sex cells, sperm and egg are being created, these things are all independent of one another. Pardon me, folks. Ladies, am I being so meaning that if I'm a male, so let's say I'm a male and I'm making sperm, and let's say I'm a blue-eyed male and I have, oh that's a bad example, that is. Let's say I'm a male with the lunulas, and if I have big L little, I am
Big.
heterozygous, and let's say I am also heterozygous for having hitchhiker's thumb or not, right? So when I am making sperm, is it always going to be like big L, big H?
No.
And like little L, little H?
No.
No, right? It could also be what? What else
Big
can I
L,
have in
little
sperm?
H.
All right, I have big L, little H.
Big H, little L.
And I could have like big H, little L, right? So these traits are also independent of each other. Just because you have blue eyes doesn't mean you'll have brown hair. Just because you have brown eyes doesn't mean you'll have black hair. Right? These things are all separate from one another. Right? So traits don't always come in combinations. All right. And that wraps up all the note action. So we can move on to our activity. All right, so swimming back to the slideshow we were on, those of you who are looking on that, you can go to slide 40. And first thing you're going to do is, under your activity section, please draw a Punnett square. Take up as much space as you like, make it nice and big. So right underneath your activity section, draw yourself a nice big Punnett square. Under your agenda, thank you. You will also notice on your table, there are 3 colors of Play-Doh. So we're going to be doing a modeling activity where we create a scenario with these chromosomes. So, looking at our directions here, and again, each individual will make their own. So you're sharing the Play-Doh that's on the table. You get a third or a fourth of it, depending on how many people are sitting at your table. But for the first color you pick, the first color you pick, you're going to be making 9 little X's that will fit in your Punnett squares. So make them small, right? They have to fit inside the Punnett square you created. An easy way to make an X is take a piece of Play-Doh, roll it into a little snake, take your snake, cut it in half, and boing, join it at the middle, and now you've got an X, right? So I'll repeat that.
Here.
Right, so take a small piece of Play-Doh. Again, you're making them small. Every individual is making their own 9 of any color you like at your table. So make yourself, roll yourself out a long little snake. Separate that in half. And then, oh yeah, and ladies in the back, feel free to move to empty spots where there's Play-Doh. Right? But your X's will need to be small enough that you can fit them into the squares you made. Right. So for those that are still sitting there befuddled, every individual is taking their Play-Doh and making 9 little X's of one color. We're only using one color to start. So if you don't have Play-Doh in your hands yet, you know you're doing the wrong thing. Have your eyes closed and be appropriate. But this is not the appropriate place for that. Nurse guidance, all good. No, obviously I would. What color? Right, good. So every individual at this point has a piece of Play-Doh in their hand that they are molding into 9 small X's.
9.
And the X's should be small, right? They're going to be small to fit in the boxes usually.
Like that?
May I take one? Right? This is a perfect size one right here, right? So,
Can't be like this.
That looks like a bird.
as long as you can tell it's an X. That's pretty small, but as long as you can tell it's an X. Alright, yeah, we'll do
It looks like one, right? I didn't know it says small. Okay.
yeah, while you're holding, I'll help you out. Very generous today. Alright, so again, every individual is making 9 small X's.
No me da la gana. Buena mano, gana.
She's way to be aggressive. Where you
Okay,
going?
it's better. Just gonna go to the nurse and deal with her
This.
Kopfschmerzen.
Like that.
What is the other word that you told me?
Perfect.
That's too big though.
No, that's awesome. It's perfect size. Right, so, yeah. Right, so, part of the activity is going to be you're going to have your Punnett square and you'll be putting the X's in the square as we go along. So just like this gentleman did here, right, he's got enough space for a second X. So, ideally if you're making, your multiple ones, they'll fit 2 to a box. But you're not going to put them in the boxes yet. We'll do that as we go along. That'll be part of the learning.
How many Punnett squares? You should have said. Yo, you are cool. 1 Punnett square made of 4 boxes.
I mean, what is this craziness over here?
She fell in love with a bed. I didn't do good squat. Bitch, no.
Hey!
Hateful. I'm about to mess that up.
All right, so most folks are getting close to the end of their X making factory, so you should only have a couple left at this point. Oh, look how nice.
Everything. I got like 3 already this term. You wanna know why?
Like he says
Because
right
I'm
there.
bobbing.
Wait, what?
Because you're a unicorn.
What? She just sings smile, bro.
All right, since
I do not say smile.
since a couple of you
You
are
say smile.
at the end of your X making production, I'll give you the next step, which is also on the board. So taking a second color from your table, you're also going to make 3 Y chromosome so make 3 of the Y's, and the Y should be the same shape as the X. So similar construct here, right? You simply just take your Play-Doh, roll out a little snake, break your snake in half.
Right. Right.
Once you've got that little snake in half here, put it on top to make like a T, and then just bend the top of your T up. Ta-da! Y.
Do you think I got enough Play-Doh for that?
Yes.
With a second color. Yep.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
And
6.
I mean, mine's a little big. It doesn't have to be this big, right? Because you saw on the screen there, remember, the Y ribosomes are smalling. Right, so by now you should have 9 X's.
Take
7
me.
more. All right, so, so we did 9 X's and 3 Y's. So you should be on the stage. We've got your second color, and you're making 3 Y chromosomes. So we're going to recreate what happens when these parents mate using our Punnett square and our chromosomes.
I don't know how y'all are doing this because my X's are too big.
Well, they can swallow it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Mind your business.
Struggling.
I hate all y'all.
I love you too.
Well, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. I know you're not.
You only hate people that you love.
Right here.
Leave me alone. Leave me alone.
There's a thin line between love and hate.
I'm a... Nah, I ain't gonna say it. Is that mage? Is that mage? Hi, Pipita.
Make me.
Get on the money train.
No, you didn't know it. Stop. What?
Hop on the money train.
I'm supposed to like make sure people do the things they're asked. Because your whole lifetime, you're gonna have terrible bosses and hate you.
Why is Zara looking at me like I got cancer?
So I'm
Oh my god.
Wow. I don't like him. I do not like him.
How's the world?
You sound like a siren dude. Who needs fire alarms?
Touch my ex, you need sauce.
She touched your what?
Right.
Touch my ex, you need sauce.
What's great about yourself?
Touch your
You have
egg.
lots of money and all
She
the
goes
well.
touch your edges.
Yeah, egg.
You got eggs?
All right, so
You got eggs, Mom?
all right. In an ideal
Wait,
world,
how many ones? So 3 ones.
in an ideal world, you've got your 3 Y's done by now.
I'm not in
Right, so you
that.
have 9 X's and 3 Y's. All right, and then you'll notice you have a third color. So on your, what you're gonna do with your third color is you're gonna take a little tiny piece of it,
Sounds like that.
and you're,
Right.
pardon me, students.
This one looks like E.T.'s hand.
Daddy!
Dime a ver, mami.
But she called me daddy, but she ain't my dog.
No, I'm just playing. You ain't got no real bars.
What you think you do?
I do.
Alright,
fire.
freestyle right now.
Perhaps the teacher can leave it for just a moment without fires.
It was Catalina.
All right, so
She's such a distraction.
what you're gonna do with your third color is you take
Hold on.
take 3 of your X chromosomes, make a little ball in your third color, and put it right on top of your X chromosome. So 3 of your X chromosomes will 3 of your X chromosomes will have that third color on them. So that means you'll have 6 X chromosomes that are one color.
How do you make a Y?
I'll show you.
What do we do with the third color?
So
Sorry,
you're
don't
gonna
be looking at her.
roll out
Yeah.
the lines and you
And guess who, you know how people want someone to take them first, so they don't look at you, but they'll stand in front of you.
Right.
That's what look at you right there.
9?
Fighting with them, right in front of the door. You got all that hallway space, but you gotta do it right in front of the door.
All right, so
How many balls are we making?
all right, so
3.
all right, so let's review the steps, right? You should have You should have 9 X's in one color. You should have 3 Y's in a second color. And then
That's way too small.
3 of your X's have a colored sphere in the middle. Right, so you wind up with 6 normal X's and then 1 X that has a second color. I mean, then 3 X's that have a second color.
Shut up, Flavio.
Right, man. Right.
Jeez. So judgmental.
Which
Like this?
So roll a little snake.
Like this?
Perfect, right? So Victoria, you can hold that up. Also hold up this one. Right, so this X has a second little color sphere on it.
Yes, girl.
And 3 of those should. Now, big, right? Make it into a T. And then take your T, open. Make it a Y. Alright, cool. Alright, folks, hopefully you're all there. Let's move on with the next.
Yeah, shall we?
It's only 3 of them.
Alright, but no one asked you.
Okay, so,
Why are you putting it on?
I mean, you got some, huh?
alright, so I had asked folks to draw a Punnett square under their activity section. You got this here. So above that on your paper, you can take one of your normal X's, one of your normal X chromosomes, and you'll put it above that.
Oh, what the?
And you'll also take one of your normal X's, and you'll put one for mom's eggs. Right, so you guys are putting this right on your paper. Right, so we have mom's egg here, we have dad's sperm there. Right, he has a normal X, she has a normal X. Also to the side of your Punnett square, put one of the X's where mom has the recessive trait on top. Right, so you just take your X's that you've made, you put them right on the sides here.
Yeah, my egg.
And then you also had your third color, and that was your Y. We'll put that above here.
My ones are bigger than them.
Wow.
All right, Sue. All right, so what we're physically going to model.
I'm putting the dots on 3.
Listen, I'm not afraid of you. Don't, just because you're tall, don't mean that you can bully anybody. Okay, I don't care. Oh my God.
All right, so what we're going to model is why is it males have some recessive characteristics, right? Why is it, like in the Punnett square we did, some of the men had the disorder and the women had the gene but not the disorder. All right, so in this box here, what combination of our X's and Y's will we put in this box here?
XX.
All right, so XX and do X with the extra color or just straight up?
Just straight up.
All right, great. So take 2 of your
straight up
normal
X's.
X's and put them there. All right, so take 2 of your normal X's and put them in that position.
What? In the
Yeah.
big one that we drew? In the big one that we drew?
Then you move.
So not in the big one that we drew?
Also, if you
And
don't
the big one that we
have
drew?
enough red ones, you get down.
Thank you.
Too many.
Vincent, can I come back now?
Like permanently smoosh them together so that they are disgusting mess that can't be ever used again? Of course not, dear. Unless you'd like to give me $1 so I can go to Dollar Tree and buy a new set.
Oh my God.
Right?
It totally burned you.
You can get a whole 4-pack for $1 at the Dollar Tree, right? So please don't eat, steal, or destroy my plate.
Why would you guys
Go buy
buy
your
your
own.
Wow.
Because some childhood habits are hard to break. All right. What about
The
what
regular
X's will you move into this one?
The colorful X and the regular X.
All right, so you'll get one regular one and one that has
The dot.
Okay, great.
Draw the circle, draw the circle, draw the circle.
And then right.
My turn. Can I do the rest? Can I do one more?
Sure, Miss Howard, set me up. So what am I gonna have over here? Oh, you want to come up here?
Yeah.
All right, so
Oh shit, wait. Okay.
by now your paper should look like this, right? Where you're starting to add the X's and Y's appropriately.
You want some too?
Wait, so now this one would be X and then mine?
Yes.
Yeah. She's such a pig.
Not a time for singing.
Okay.
I appreciate your joy. Just sing for later.
No, you're not.
real quick.
right, is, may I? Okay, Sue, right, you should have wound up with this physical model of the chromosomes and their movement, right? So you wound up, I know what should.
Jeez, what happened to my wife?
Okay, Sue, it looks like an X. I tried to erase a part of it. Okay, Sue, having a look at this now, we're going to start writing some things in our boxes.
Look at mine. Oh my God, look how cute it is.
So notice that you're talking out loud. It's creating a disturbance for another student.
Are you serious? There's other students talking.
I'm trying to get one at a time, right? I'm going to go to Ekra next.
Look at my paper.
You guys are the loudest, so I cued in on yours first.
Look at my paper.
Okay, Sue. Alright, so now we're going to add some writing to this, assuming the smartboard cooperates. Okay, great. Alright, so from this first box here,
We have to move the plate.
Go ahead, Mrs. Powell, I'm listening.
I know, but too many people are not. Don't let us into class. Alright, so from this box here, go ahead and remove the Play-Doh from just this box. Yeah, so just this one. We're going to do one at a time. Right? Okay, so which chromosomes, take your pen, what do we have in that box? We had 2 X's, right? So go ahead and draw that into that what is now an empty box. Alright. Now because we have 2 X's, what is also true of this box? What is something true of this box?
Unaffected.
Alright, it's unaffected, right? It doesn't have the trait, so we can write that this one is unaffected.
The sex.
What is the sex?
I don't. Oh, it's a female daughter.
How do you know it's a female?
Because of the X. You said it's the dominant 2 X's or whatever.
Because it's 2 X's. Very nice, right? So here we have a daughter, right?
Carrier.
And this daughter is unaffected. Great. Okay. Same thing. I'm going to call some folks up to fill in 3 things about the other
I'm
boxes.
free already.
All right, so it's true. That lady is recovering. Rosario, if you could come up and write 3 things about one of the other offspring. And Denasia, if you could come up and do one. And Yuli, if you could come up and do the last one.
Are you kidding me? Whoa.
You know what's at random? I don't select.
Leave it alone. That's
Mark.
yours. Yes, it is mine.
I gave up. I'll let you know.
Well, she would be affected, right? Because you would need to have 2 of those to be affected. So what would she be instead? A carrier. Right, and you don't necessarily have to wait for your classmates. Like, you could start to solve the puzzle on your own as well. And this would be a male or female. 2 X's. So it would be a daughter. Very nice. Okay, great. Right, and then Yuli and Tanisha, you guys were our other excited contestants.
She looks bad scary. How do I look scary?
Either one, Yuli, come on up.
Leave me alone. Why are you bullying me?
Yeah, make it a little big, like make it a little bigger, Yuli. I think it would be hard for folks to. Yeah.
No, not until March.
All right, and what do we have? Son or daughter? Boy or girl?
What the hell did you
So it's XY. Son, right? And you can just put the male symbol. All right, so I want to remind students that in a classroom, you don't just let every thought in your head spill out of your mouth, right? So, Ezekiel, time to manners.
Okay.
And is this person affected, unaffected, or a carrier? Affected. Very nice. and then I'll do this last one. Since the student call is uncooperative. What am I going to have here? What will be in this box? And because it's XY, that means this person is a boy. And are they affected, unaffected, or a carrier?
I don't know.
Unaffected.
Unaffected. All right, great.
So X means unaffected?
Well, no, you're only affected if you're a girl that has 2 of those,
Okay.
or if you're a boy that has 1, because your Y doesn't have the option to cover it, right? So what we were able to show, Ekron, you can save that very important conversation for another time, please. Thank you, dear. However, you're welcome to write it down. That way it doesn't interrupt the class with the volume of your voice. Right? If it's important, just write it. Which is a huge reversal from when I was a childhood. Like, when I was in high school, like, writing notes was, like, forbidden. And now we're, like, desperate to have you people write something once in a while. Right? So, feel free. If you've got an important message, or if you want to sing a song, just write it all down.
But how am I singing the song if I'm not even singing the
Because you're
song?
singing it in your head silently, and you're getting it on the paper, so it's still removing itself from your body. Right, you put little music notes around it, draw a little picture of a person dancing.
Can I draw?
Oh my god.
All right, so,
No.
Gross, I don't know why you got here. You don't want to sit here the whole time, write the board. I didn't ask you to go up there. Do you remember what Miss Barrow said? Right, we don't have to bother you if you actually do it.
Wait, I have a question.
Yes.
Why is this one affected and not a human?
All right, what's the deal? Why is this male affected, even though he's only got 1 recessive? Because the Y is missing the trait, right? So whatever he got from mom is all he has, right? So either mom didn't give it to him or she did. And dad had no say in the matter whatsoever. All right, so finishing the writing of this down, we should have all 3 things in each box. And let's go ahead and see if this matches.
Can I put the Play-Doh away?
Yeah, to go see if it's the away. Let's see if this matches the chart that we started with. All right, Sue. Did we have 1 male that was unaffected?
Yes.
All right. Did we have 1 daughter that was unaffected?
Yes.
Did we have 1 daughter that was a carrier? And did we have 1 son that was affected?
Yes.
Right. So we were able to visually prove what would happen with this male and female if they mated. Right. What the percentage of their children would be likely. Now, are we saying if they had 4 kids, this is exactly what would happen?
No.
No, this is just...
You can have some of the same both or...
Right, you might have 3 boys that are unaffected, right? Or you could have 2 girls that are carrier and 1 girl that's not. Right? Every time it's a gamble. What if they had 100 babies? Would we likely see a percentage similar to this? Yeah, right? It might be like 23% to 26 or whatever. But you'd likely see this if there was 100 babies. Right? If she was just like tied up in a room, having baby after baby, year after year.
Wow.
That's
That's
Right? So,
That's so true. That's so true.
That's 9
months? 3 months recovery?
That means that you only have like 2
Oh my god, he's videotaping.
Oh, really?
Alright, so, alright folks, and let's have a look at the exit CAD.
Oh my goodness.
Again, please make sure,
dying.
alright,
Oh, it's time to go.
yeah, it's just about time to go, so please make sure your planner's away, have a look at the exit card. You should be able to very easily answer this.
Oh my goodness.
I can't believe I left my binder here.
Alright, oh my god.
I've been trying to find it.
Yeah. You guys